Okay, hi guys. Just recording a quick YouTube video because I have been saying to myself for ages I'm going to start putting longer videos on YouTube, so they're not videos that are short like my Instagram account, just exploring some topics in a little bit more detail. It's so nice to be interviewed because there's like this organic flow that happens with the conversation. So just going to be getting used to chatting on here and recording videos and then uploading them. I hope that people like them, and I hope that there is something you can take from the work that I present and the information and work I'm working with through my channeling and my information. So I did a video with Steve Noble regarding your blueprint and interference, negative AI, dark force interference. And I just didn't really get to unpack in that video. I didn't really get to unpack the blueprint the way I wanted to. We didn't have as much time as I would have liked. So I thought, let me start a video with talking about our blueprint and what makes up our blueprint, your soul's blueprint. And these are really interesting topics to me because they are things that I'm interested in learning about myself and how the blueprint works together, because we've all heard that, you know, your soul came here for a specific mission. Everybody wants to know what their purpose is. And we often say, well, that's linked to your blueprint. So as I said in my previous video regarding the blueprint, I've been shown that it's shifting and changing and moving and evolving. So I had that little drawing, which I need to still redraw. I'm going to hold it up here. Okay, so you can see what we're working with, this being the nucleus where the soul is, and then the layers around the soul. And then these are like neurons that connect and all interact with each other. And as we become more conscious, more neurons wire and fire and connect to as you go out in the rings. So the center of the nucleus, the center is the nucleus, which is your soul, your personality. And as you can see, I drew over here, this is God, and there's your higher self. So that's a future version of yourself. So there's a direct link as us as humans or beings that have souls have a direct link that cannot be severed. It's interesting when I'm working on clients and I'm looking at the crown chakra, I'd never really see interference in the crown chakra. It feels like that's something that can't be interfered with. Yes, you can have interference on the top of your head. I see that all the time, dark interference within the brain and in the body, in the energy field. But the crown chakra seems to be something that just has this coding, I suppose, that can't be kind of taken away or messed with. So in the nucleus, so we got the nucleus, which is the soul, is your personality. It's connected to God. And then I drew a circle just around outside of that nucleus with some neurons. And that is your DNA, the first circle. Remember, it's layered. So it's like an overlapped grid. It's not flat like I've drawn it. So just keep that in mind. Your DNA is your lineage. So the information, it's interesting because when I do sessions with people and I'm saying to people that there are so many multidimensional layers when it comes to healing, clearing, working on yourself. So your past lives that you've had on earth are very different to the information and memory that's coming through your DNA. So a lot of souls have incarnated at this time to clear the generational trauma, to work through that for the collective and for the family, the bloodline. So when your mom is pregnant with you, obviously the fetus inside the mother's womb is experiencing all the experiences that the mother is having. So that starts to get stored in the cellular makeup of the baby. And so there's already stuff happening before you've even made it earthside. I know it's wild. But then also, obviously, the information gets passed down through the DNA. So if your bloodline has addiction problems or abuse or sexual, distortions and sexual abuse and that kind of thing, that information is down through your bloodline. It's stored in the DNA of the bloodline. It doesn't mean that those are your past life experiences. It's the bloodline that you're carrying, and the DNA is your keys to everything. So the Akashic records, from what Spirit has showed me, is stored within your DNA. So everything you want to access, it's not outside of you. That's why people will tell you, eyes in, go in, everything's internal. The Akashic records are not some, people might see it like they enter into a library of information with files, and different channels and mediums can see it in all these different ways. It's, from what I'm shown, metaphor for what is held, the memory that's held within our DNA. There is obviously a quantum dimensional space where all information resides. And so that's something slightly different. I'm not going to get into that now. So we've got the first thing that interacts with it's not the first, because I said it's a grid layered. You've got your nucleus where your soul resides. That's your essence of who you are. It's directly connected to source. Then you've got your DNA, your lineage, the information. So this is interesting because sometimes when we get sick, not sometimes, what I'm shown is from one layer and one perspective, all illness is manifested unhealed trauma within the body. So why does an illness or trauma manifest in a specific area? Your body's your storyboard, always is. It's always telling you, it's always talking to you. It is literally a living conduit for multidimensional things that it's carrying that we aren't aware of until we start going on an awakening or spiritual consciousness journey. So if you have issues with your stomach and you go into your Akashic library and you pull all your past lives with stomach ailments or issues, you will find that often there has been many lifetimes where your stomach has had an issue. You might have been stabbed in your stomach. You could have had been poisoned. So your DNA already has that. Your cells then have that memory, even though you don't consciously have it in your mind. So when something in this lifetime starts to trigger us, a trauma starts to trigger us, and it can be very behind the scenes, like a running, like a beat, unconsciously behind the scenes. When we accumulate trauma, it starts to manifest outwards, like it needs to express itself outwards. And it will often then affect an area of our body that we have through lifetimes had issues in that space. And this is why looking at past lives is such a good thing to do, to understand who you are and also why certain things are playing out in your life and in your body the way they are. So yeah, you've got your DNA, which is different to your past lives. I jumped ahead there. You have your DNA, which holds the lineage's memory. And also, if your lineage has any sort of black magic, or people have been working with spells or curses, or even consciously or unconsciously, you're taking on all of that. So you've come in to bring awareness to it, and then also to obviously break that. So because we have the ability to break all contracts in this lifetime, we have the ability to clear all of the trauma that comes collectively down through the lineage. So there's like neurons that sort of come online as we come online that connect to that. And then we've got our past lives, which I've just pretty much spoken about. It's interesting. I'm also shown your most recent past life often sits like a shadow body over you. So if you had a very traumatic death in your most recent past life, or a lot of trauma, it's like a shadow that is more prevalent, and then sometimes how trauma would manifest than long time ago past lives. It's almost more fresh in the memory of the cells. That's not really explaining it properly, because let me just stop for a second here. It's like a shadow body that sits over you, pulling from the most recent past life. So you can access all your past lives, you know, all the way back to Atlantis, Lemuria, even off planet. You can look at the lifetimes you've had as different beings on different planets. And that's another interesting topic, because so many of us think, oh, you know, someone told me I'm from Andromeda, or someone said I'm from Pleiades. Most of us have been on all of those planetary systems at some point in time. There's very few planetary systems we haven't experienced being on, or beings we haven't experienced. We will feel more strongly drawn to a specific planetary system because we might have been there for longer. Our monad soul group might reside there, or our blueprint, what we're busy working through, the frequency that we like to tap into in terms of the rays of color that we would work with, could be linked to that specific planetary system. But yeah, from what I'm shown, we've pretty much like done most of those experiences. So then outside of your past lives, you have, perfect timing, your galactic history. This is something I love to look at, because I am actually busy creating, I'm calling it a masterclass, but maybe it's more like a course on your original consciousness. So that is where we look at when your soul came into individuation. I'm shown it like a big central sun, and your soul sparks out of that sun. It generally comes in a big soul overgroup, and that breaks down into further pieces or individuations. And you can look at what energetic you came in with when you go and look at that, and then the different planetary systems that you've spent time on. And this, I mean, I'm shown things we don't even know the names of some of these beings and planets. You can't Google them. I get strange names all the time. Go and Google, and it's just, no one knows about it yet. So we've got our galactic history. We have been in planetary end times before, and we've been on planets where the consciousness didn't make it, or it's like I'm showing the warlocks came, which is like the dark AI, they invaded and we didn't make it, which means that there is a lot of trauma from our galactic history that we are carrying, and is specifically presently at this time on Earth. There can be that feeling for a lot of let's call us starseeds. Most souled beings are, from one perspective. It's not that anyone's more special than the other, but the way shows, you know, the people on the consciousness journey, we can be feeling a little bit like nervous about what's to come, because there have been timelines and experiences where, as I said, we didn't make it. So when we bring awareness to all of these things, we get this really deep, greater understanding around why we're experiencing what we're experiencing. And then sometimes just bringing the awareness to something shifts it, actually. But there are many things, like what I do in my sessions and how we clear things, we look for contracts. So when I remote view or I do work, I don't just focus on viewing a story. It's like when I've worked with planetary work with my partner, the woman I worked with for a year and a half, we didn't just go back in time to look at, you know, what's happening, or go, you know, off planet to look. We would always go and be instructed that you can shift it, so you can reverse it, change timelines. I'm shown timelines reside in a field where they're like on a continual loop, because obviously outside of Earth, time is stacked. It's not linear. So you can always tap into that. That's why how you can always go back and tap into those timelines, so you can actually shift things. And you can also decide that those certain stories are no longer serving you, so you want to pull those files or those memories out of your body. Obviously, we want to get all of our gifts back. We want to get all of our memory of all the wisdom, the amazing warrior energetics or light that we've worked with, or healing abilities that we've had before, these really cool like superpowers. But we also don't want to pull all of that trauma online as well. So you can work through removing that out of the body, something I work with on clients. Okay, so then outside of your galactic history, we have your monad oversoul group, which I find very interesting because a monad oversoul group I lightly touched on when I was speaking about your original consciousness, so where your soul individuated. This is a group of, so these are individuations that come from a bigger package, let's call it that way. So you can tap into, for example, someone from your monad group, or your monad group holds the Yeshua energetic, then I could look at someone and go, oh, it looks like, you know, you experienced being Yahweh or Jesus in a past life. But you'll see there's many people that can tap into that because that's the monad soul of a group. It's a consciousness. It's a group. Trying to find good words to explain this. It's a group consciousness that you can tap into. It has a huge part to play in your blueprint. So it's like other beings like Saint Germain, Mary Magdalena, very high consciousness. It's high level consciousness. Those human beings weren't just one being. It's a group consciousness. It's also what I'm showing around, like how planets are born. It's a group consciousness. So there's a big group consciousness that birthed Earth, actually. And then that's also why we're here to help restore her back to her original template. And then, so monad souls is something I'm going to be going into a little bit more depth around when I do my masterclass on original consciousness and how we can tap into our own monad soul. So that would have a lot to do with the information that specific to you would tap into and channel. That comes down to a specific frequency. So imagine you have numbers 1 to 33, and each number holds a array of color. So I haven't gone and channeled which each number is. And maybe later in on my downloading information that'll come through, but let's use, for example, that 3 holds the violet flame. My blueprint, depending on my monad soul and other things in this blueprint, would then, if it aligns with that frequency, I would then draw information from that structure, which is 3. So 3 would have within it would contain an infinite amount of information. That's all true. Infinite amount of truth and information would be contained in 3, which let's call is associated with the violet flame. 4, let's say, is the blue ray, would have the same, but those truths might seem actually opposing. They could actually be opposing, but they're structures that hold information. And as we go through our ascension journey, we are stepping into such a high state of consciousness that we're able to hold and ground and understand opposing truths, knowing that even though they're opposing, we can hold the idea and the knowing that they're both true. This is where a lot of people get like, oh, but I want, the science behind it, and that doesn't make sense because it doesn't add up here, there, and there. That's a very limited, I understand it from the human perspective, especially with what we're working with on Earth in terms of the physicality and the limitations. So we are programmed to see, beginning, middle, end, everything. And we're programmed to see the restrictions around energetics and substrates and substances we get to work with here. But of course, there's so much more out there, and it's much bigger. So we're stepping into freeing the mind from the limiting beliefs and the limiting understandings into a much more open, broad, using more actually of the mind's capacity, brain's capacity. So coming back to the monad, the numbers, and the frequency. That's why you'll find some channels will be speaking this or interpreting or bringing through information that could be completely different to mine. It doesn't mean that I'm right and they're wrong, or they're wrong and I'm right. It just means that they are tapping into a different structure of information that they need to be working with, especially at this time. Okay, then outside of the monad soul, we've got it's astrological alignments. So in this lifetime, you would have chosen when you wanted to be born. We work with the planets in the same way that we work with our energy field. So within our energy field, we also have points like planets, which are energy points, almost like chakras. So the earth represents, she's like us, she's like a body of in herself, like our human form body. And she has chakras within her, and then the planets are energy points that represent certain themes outside of her. We have the same. So 100%, it's all linked. I've said it so many times, the microcosm to the macrocosm, the whole universe is contained within one cell, and the whole universe could be brought into one cell, condensed into one cell. This is also where we start looking at the concept of there's no separation. So with that being said, what the planets are going through, whether they're retrograding or going direct, or there's, these cosmic alignments that happen, how they affect us in our house, we would have chosen to work with those themes in this lifetime. And it's so interesting because when I look at when we drop into this specific lifetime or lifetimes before, the way in which our higher self, along with our guidance team, chooses to, or who we are, choose to set that up. It's so intricately designed, and orchestrated to the highest level of intelligence. It blows my mind. It's like quantum computing beyond, for my brain to try and figure it out, how, like, all the nuances of how I chose what I chose, my family, the day I came in, the numerology of my name, just so many things. It gets quite overwhelming. So the planets, definitely, I love astrology. I'm not an astrologer. I love to follow what's going on cosmically. And then also, because I'm not an astrologer, just channel a little bit for myself around what we are navigating. So without knowing, through my, being an astrologer, what's happening, I can really tap into and tune into that energy. For example, we've just had the Lion's Gate, which to me, and what I was channeling around, that was very supportive energy. It was all about bringing what we've worked on, whether we've been aware of it or not, in the astral realms, in the energetic realm, pulling those things into physicality. So there has been a very strong supportive energy, very action-oriented energy. Yesterday, I think, was the 14th. We just sort of came out of the Lion's Gates around the 12th, 13th. I just started feeling Sunday and Monday, the energy just, it's like it felt so much heavier. And then when I was asking Spirit about it, they said, but this is what it's meant to do, is we're supposed to have these action, go orientation energies to support forward movement and action. And then these energies that ask us to slow down, reevaluate, and rest and release. So I said, well, that's fantastic, Spirit. But we don't live in a world where it's easy to slow down when you have babies to feed and a job to go to and children to fetch from school, and all the things that we have to do. So it does work well, but I don't think our current matrix system is obviously not set up for us to ebb and flow easily with that, with the structures that we have to play in and work with in the 3D reality of this earth. So it's not an easy journey, guys. And I'm going to do some more videos around the matrix and the domes and stuff, especially within my membership. So if you're not a member of Celestial Sentience, please sign up. I have my new moon meditation tomorrow. It's healing inner child. I'm thinking it might even be healing other things like relationships, because we're in a Venus retrograde. Some themes I'm playing with personally. So yeah, my membership, Celestial Sentience, I'm going to be definitely diving into this energetic of trying to explain this matrix dome. And I'm writing about it in my book as well. So I'll bring that knowledge into my membership, which if you go into my website, which is www.faraware.com, you can sign up for Celestial Sentience, and you can also look at the Q&A I've done there with the amazing group of people and souls that I'm building a community where we can all also support each other and learn and grow through this consciousness journey together. Okay, so outside of that astrological alignment, we have numerology, and as it has it says 1 to 33, 33 being a completion number. Interesting talking about numerology. I'm not a numerologist either. Love numbers, love working with numbers and the energetic of numbers. And I work with a guide called Magda for a very long time, who is working with bringing so there's other starseeds out there, whether they're aware of it or not, that are also working with this guide and this download of information, or reintegrating of information in terms of sacred geometry and mathematics onto the planet. No, I'm not a mathematician. I'm not great with maths or science. But I was told recently through my guidance system that 12 is now online. So in numerology, we would usually go to 11 as a master number, and then 12 would go back to 3, but 12 is now being restored. And what I was channeled, I think in the beginning of 2020, was that what does it mean? I think I wrote it down. It was around new information around sacred geometry, which was kept off Earth by not negative forces, actually by for the specific reason that it wasn't time yet. It wasn't meant to come onto the planet, and it's now being activated. So the channeling was something around how I'd be working, and other starseeds would be working with this knowledge and bringing it through and bringing it online, and then we wouldn't complete it in our lifetimes. It would go down the generational cycle. So there's definitely stuff happening and shifting and upgrading in terms of numerology on our planet at the moment. So all of these things really factor into what makes up your specific blueprint. And then, of course, you have your higher self, which is a future version of you. How amazing. A future version that resides in a much higher dimensional space and can understand things from a much higher perspective, a more multi-layered perspective. So I really like to work with my higher self. It's definitely my go-to for wanting to get clarity and information around things. Okay, so I will redraw this at some point. Oh, the other thing is, I wrote down here the neurons. So the neurons which are around so like I showed you on the drawing. So these would represent little neurons, how they connect, like neurons connect in the brain. You have latent and patent neurons, which would be some are seen and some are hidden. But the more work you do on yourself, the more you really are going to put everything into patent, which would be seen. And that takes time. And our blueprint is also shifting and changing. So the more we come online, the more we complete certain karmic themes and experiences, and we move through energetics, and we don't get stuck in loops and cycles, which is essentially, everything is essentially about bringing things inwards, so that you're not a victim to your reality. You're taking full responsibility for your reality. So we have people that come along and trigger us, and they do from one perspective, they do not nice things to us, and it's like knock 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 knock. Okay, you got to look within. Knock 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 knock, and it gets louder and louder and louder until we finally get it, and then we move on to the next thing. And then as we complete things, our blueprint would shift into a higher octave, actually. And so that's why when I work with clients, I always tell them that I like to work with the really basic sort of psychology. So I'm not a psychologist, by the way, disclaimer. Basic psychology principles, which are like looking at the ego, looking at the belief systems, looking at the stories that we run, unconscious, well, the stories that we attach to, so the narratives that we run within the mind. And that takes a lot of daily practice and awareness to catch yourself when you're getting triggered. So we're oscillating in and out of a high frequency. So some people say we're in half in 5D and half in 3D, and we come in and out, but that's just got to do with our frequency. So we oscillate and jump around based on what's happening externally in our external environment, and it definitely affects or triggers and stuff like that affect our frequency. And I'm all about moving emotions through the body. So we don't want to love and light our way out of it. We don't want to pretend that it's, all rainbows and unicorns and all good, because that's like bypassing. And I'm pretty sure anyone watching this is aware of that term, spiritual bypassing. So I have actually got in my membership also like a basic PDF on how to rewire your nervous system through consciousness. That is how we sit with our emotions, and we sit with the feeling without having any story around it. So we observe it, and as we observe it, we bring a light to it, and it's able to transmute out of our body. And then I also like to work with when something's happening to me, or I'm feeling extremely hurt or sad by a situation, I always ask Spirit to show me what's unhealed within myself. And it's amazing because it's never let me down. And I've discovered through some like relationships that I've been in, very deep unhealed aspects of myself, that if I wasn't with those people, with that person, so to the outside world, that person might be considered a narcissist, or that person, some people might say that person's treats you terribly, or X, Y, and Z. They're actually always offering you a gift if you're willing to do the work of looking inwards. So yeah, we have to work daily with these practices. That's why I also meditate and meditate every day, because I can't stay stagnant in my work, and I'm always going to be working on myself, because I still get triggered sometimes, and I still have things to heal and energies to work through, and we will all have that until we are an ascended master, which is what we're going through, ascension. I think, see, it all comes full circle, all makes sense. I can talk a little bit more about the basic psychology stuff, which I'm a big believer in. If anyone's interested or wants to leave some comments and let me know from listening to this video, because I'd like to interact a little bit more with my viewers, what they're interested in hearing about, if there's anything people would like me to sort of to channel. Yeah, bring it on. I love questions, because questions from other people also get my mind thinking, and then I love to go and meditate and bring in the information. So I'm not going to go into archons and beings and soulless beings and soulful beings, because that's a whole other subject. AI, I call it Luciferic AI consciousness. That'll be addressed in that Luciferic AI consciousness will be addressed in my masterclass on original consciousness. And if you're interested in that, I have said that I would run that course when at least, I think, 30 people sign up. So if you are interested, pop me an email and say I'd like to run with that with you, and I'll put you on the waiting list. Otherwise, please join my membership so we can explore this amazing ascension journey together and help each other through. I'm going to have to sign off because I have places to go and things to do. I hope this video was informative, and I am very grateful for anyone who is able to take something from it and it resonates with. Sending lots of love. Bye.